Good evening and welcome to another episode of Nervous Chat. For those of you that have not been here before, this is my live stream podcast where every Monday night I bring in a guest from the theme park community to have a chat about what they do, what they like, where they've been, and all those kind of things, and just a general sort of get to know people and an opportunity for people to get to know each other within the theme park community. Tonight's guest is, excuse me, a bit of a dry throat. Tonight's guest is from across the pond in the US of A. I got to know them through a predominantly American Instagram group chat, which I was added to by the fantastic Zoodaloopers and Longhorn Coasters. And through that, got to know this other channel, Exploration Theme Parks, which I started to look into and enjoyed watching the content. And then not so long ago, a few months ago, they announced they were coming to Europe. So for me, it was the perfect opportunity once they'd done their European trip to get them in and have a chat about what they thought of European theme parks. Sadly, they weren't able to come to the UK, but I think they had a pretty widespread experience of what we have to offer here in the UK. So without further ado, let me introduce tonight's guest, Kevin, one half of Exploration Theme Parks. Good evening, Kevin.
Hey, Darren. Thanks for having me on.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for giving up the time to come in.
Of course.
I appreciate there's a little bit of a time difference between here and it's California, isn't it, that you were in?
Yeah. We're in Los Angeles, California. It's currently 12:07 p.m., so it's lunchtime.
Wow. Yeah, that's I obviously I've had the Zoodaloopers on and Longhorn Coasters, who there's only sort of a 5-hour difference between us. So 8 p.m. it's sort of 3 p.m. there.
Florida, so
yeah. So this is the biggest time gap we've had. So it's a first for Nervous Chat with an 8-hour time gap. But as I say, thank you so much for agreeing to come in and speak to us. Obviously, you are one half of Exploration Theme Parks. There is also the absolutely lovely Nikki, which is your good lady wife, of course. And the channel is a collaborative effort, isn't it, between the two of you?
Yeah, it's fun. We have a great time. It's nice that we both have the same love for roller coasters, theme parks. She actually recently just became a nurse, so she is currently at her new job and couldn't be on the chat today, unfortunately.
Well, please congratulate her for me, because that's fantastic, and nursing is a very, very admirable profession. So yeah, please send her my congratulations. Before we go any further, I'd just welcome a few people who are in the live chat tonight. We've got M from Oscar's Airtime, who's also one of my moderators. We've got the lovely Parks and Sharks, who were last week's guests. Lovely to see you again, guys. Thanks for joining in. Theme Park 2030, Brendan, Oliver, and Molly, who I met at Thorpe Park recently. Really nice guys. Walking with the Woods, that would be Nick. Thanks for coming in, Nick, another one of my moderators. Theme Park Kate, lovely to see you again, Kate. Hope you've had a great time at Towers the last couple of days with Mike from Journey to the Attractions. Good evening, Lauren, the Thompson Life. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Just going to make sure I've grabbed everybody. I think that's everybody. So I'll run through the live chat as we're talking. I've changed the format of the show a little bit tonight. You're a little bit of a guinea pig, I'm afraid. Obviously, what I wanted to do was a couple of icebreaker questions, if you like, just to so people can get to know you and as a person as well as a creator. So I've got a couple of questions I'm gonna ask you. Please bear with me. First off, pizza, pasta, or rice?
Pizza.
Pizza. Good man. I mean, the other two are delicious, but yeah, if I had to choose,
yeah, pizza's for sure the top.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess going to Italy was a great great visit for
You
you.
have plenty of pizza and pasta there, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes. What was your dream job growing up?
It's funny that you asked that. So, because I was actually talking about it to someone the other day. So, one of my dream jobs was to become a professional basketball player. I do play a lot of basketball. I'm fairly good, but I am only 5'8". So my dad's 6'3", my mom's 5 foot, so I fell right in between. So that kind of, limited that dream a little bit. My other dream job growing up was actually to be a roller coaster engineer, which playing Roller
Okay.
Coaster Tycoon and Planet Coaster, I kind of came true a little bit, right?
No, absolutely. I think for most people who are enthusiasts, at some point their dream job has been to work at a theme park or work on a roller coaster. My son, the G-Man, who appears sort of periodically in the vlogs, his dream is to design roller coasters and to own his own theme park. So
Good dream. Yeah, I did
he's
actually work at Six Flags Magic Mountain for a short time frame of my life.
okay. That's interesting to know, and it didn't put you off.
No, 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 no.
That's well, that's good. Um, the next one I'm going to ask you if Six Flags came to you and said, right, we want to build Kevin's nightmare area at Magic Mountain, and we want your 3 worst rides you've ever been on. What would they be and why?
Ooh, all right, gotta think about this real quick. I'd say Viking at Energylandia is one of the worst ones I've ever been on. That thing
Okay,
was absolutely terrible. I mean, it's like so bad that it's kind of good. Um,
I know rides like that.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm trying to think. That's a hard one to think off the top of my head. Viking for sure came to my head though. I'd say it's a defunct coaster now, but Flashback at Six Flags Magic Mountain's another really bad one. Yeah, that was horrible. Let me think. Oh, I'd say Blue Tornado at Garterland. The Vekoma SLC that has the old trains. That was just nonstop. Like, I'm pretty sure people get concussions on that coaster.
Yes. Who's recently been to Energylandia from Oscar's Airtime, is totally agreeing with you over Viking.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that it's a bad ride. She did say to me when she came back that it was a one of those, as you say, it's so bad that it's bordering on being good because it's so bad. But she was like, it's bad.
I
It's
mean,
bad.
you sit down. It's like a wild mouse spinner, and you sit down, and they have these old school over the shoulder harness, and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, why do they have these restraints on this ride? And like, yeah, from there on, it's just it's outrageous.
We're still catching up, I think, in Europe, especially in the UK, with the whole removing over the head restraints. If you get a chance to visit the UK, you'll see that we are very much behind the rest of the world with this. We still insist on old school over the head restraints. Some of them, are okay and reasonably comfortable. Some of them are horrible.
Yeah,
And as you say, with the right lap bar setup, unnecessary. So I think we're definitely behind, which might explain why you had that that experience. um, right. What was the other question I was going to ask you? Here we go. So, if you were an animal, what animal would you be and why?
ooh, that's another good one. I think I'd be bird so I can fly. Maybe
I
like a
love that
falcon,
answer.
falcon or eagle or something.
Yeah, yeah. I like the and do you know what that says so much about you as a person and your love of freedom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I and I could quite see that. quite see that. And your most played song on your whatever device you listen to music on, your recent most played song.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a mixture. Well, recently it's been Blink 182 because we just saw Blink 182 in concert the other night. So that's been on our playlist.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I like Blink 182. I remember them from sort of back in the day.
Yeah, I
They
saw
were
them
big.
when I was in sixth grade, and then
Wow.
my wife had never seen them, and one of the singers and the guitarist just joined back into the group, so we're like, oh, we got to go check them out. So great concert. That's what's been recently on our playlist for sure.
Fantastic. Who is your favorite YouTuber? Or who inspires you?
You know what? Who I like originally started watching. I mean, I would say it'd be Coaster Studios and Theme Park Worldwide.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, oh, like I love editing stuff. I like, documenting stuff. Obviously love theme parks and roller coasters. So that's what I kind of wanted to start getting into this.
No, I think that's brilliant. I think everybody has somebody that inspired them to start it.
And then I think more recently, who's like kind of inspiring me is the Ms. Zooter Loopers. I think they've just been getting really creative with their content, and they're just, you want to surround yourself with positive people, and they just, portray this positivity in all their content. So I really like that.
Yes, absolutely. They exude positivity, don't they? Wherever they are, whatever they're doing, even in bad situations, they can always find something positive about it.
Yep.
I admire that. I think that's a gift and a lovely family. I've had them on the show, and absolutely lovely people. And as you say, their creativity is just, I'd love to be half as good as them with an editing suite. I really would. But I suppose for me the equivalent here is, and I know she won't admit this, but Em from Oscar's Airtime. If you've ever checked out her editing skills, she's another one who is a wizard with an editing suite.
I'll be sure to check it out.
Yeah, definitely. She, as I say, just an absolute wizard with an editing suite, and she's coming to the States, but I think Florida, I'm afraid.
I know all the Europeans only love to go to Florida, which I don't blame them.
I think it's because Florida's the one that's kind of Florida's the one that's spoon fed to us, because of Universal, Disney, Busch Gardens,
and everything's just right next to each other there. So
yeah, although I must admit, having looked more and more into Magic Mountain, actually, I think that looks like a really good park, and it sort of made me go, I like the idea of being in California. Maybe that I'd be a bit different and go California rather than going like everybody else does. Go to Florida. But I don't know if I could miss out on Velocicoaster while I'm in the States.
So great.
Yeah. I just it's just one of those bucket list coasters, isn't it? That you just have to do it.
Yeah, we went last August, and Velocicoaster is just out of this world.
Yeah. So obviously you've had your channel for about 11 months now, coming up to a year, is it?
Yeah, coming up to a year in July, so next month. Yeah.
So obviously Coaster Studio was an inspiration for you, but what made you make that decision to just go, do you know what, let's make a vlog, let's create a YouTube channel and start vlogging?
We were going to amusement parks all the time, and again, I like editing. I like documenting. I'd always take pictures and and videos anyways. So, you know, I was just like, I might as well try to do this. And, you know, my mindset is always like, this is a hobby, right? I like to do this. I enjoy this. I get to do it with my wife. She enjoys it. You know, it's a win-win situation. I never went into this being like, I'm going to make a living off this, you know.
No.
It's just something I enjoy doing, you know, and going to these theme parks and amusement parks anyways, you know, I figured, oh, I can just start documenting it, you know, and that's how it started.
I was quite interested to see that your first vlog, where a lot of people, myself included, start off going to a park and film the day at the park. But that's not how you started, was it? Yours was more of a, this is my home park and this is what I think is going to happen next. Was that a conscious decision, or was it?
It was actually just it's something I really wanted to talk about. Like, you know, it's about being that dream of being the designer of the park, you know. It's just something I wanted to put together, and that's what I started off with, you know, and explaining like, oh, you know, if I were the owner or if I were the CEO or president, you know, this is what I would do going forward for these different sections of the parks. And I've always wanted to get back to doing some of those types of videos. It's just, you know, I still work a full-time job, and those types of videos take a lot longer to put together than, you know, say a vlog. So, you know, eventually I'll try to put some of those types of videos together again, but yeah.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, I've considered making videos like that, and when you start to look into, you know, finding all the clips that you need is just the beginning. And then it's, you know, it's all the voiceover work, and then obviously lining up the voiceover with the clip. And I must admit, I don't think I'd ever have enough time, because like you, I work, I've got a family as well, you know, and they do look like a lot of work. So I admire anybody that does them, because I
And
think,
like
you
you
know,
said, you know, you admire for anyone who does that. And that's what happened to me is I'm like, geez, I have so much more respect for people, not just in, you know, the theme park world, but like in general that put together certain types of YouTube videos, because like it takes a lot of time and effort, you know.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose all videos take, you know, effort and time. It's you know, live streaming, for example. You know, I guess a lot of people just think that, you know, I turn up on a Monday and I hit that go live button and away we go. You know, but it's the designing the
Yep.
thumbnails, the questions, the research. You know, because I wouldn't want to come in here and not know anything about Six Flags Magic Mountain or your vlogs, or, you know, or anything like that. You know, so it's the research and everything that goes into it, and of course the planning of guests. You know, I try to have the next 6 weeks worth of guests already
Yep.
booked in, because I have found myself in the situation before where people have had to pull out for whatever reason. You know, this is a hobby, and I totally appreciate, you know, it's a hobby, and people, things happen in real life that drag them away from commitments like this. You know, because it's not a priority, and I totally appreciate that. You know, I'd hate to think anybody prioritized coming on my show over a family issue or emergency. But you know, it is that planning and everything else. And as I say, you know, it does take a lot of work, and I think, but I think that's true of all videos. You know,
Yep.
vlogs as well. You know, I know again. Oscar's airtime, the amount of work that she puts into her vlogs, you know, and the resulting vlog is around a sort of 10 minutes vlog, but I know the hours that have gone into that vlog to make it, as you know, the vlog that it is. It's it is a lot of work.
Definitely.
So I think, you know, all credit to anybody that does any kind of YouTube work, really, that strives to be as good as they can possibly be,
Yeah.
with regards to all that. So, as we've obviously established, Magic Mountain's your home park, and you used to work there. Now, obviously, having a look a quick look again through the rides that were at Magic Mountain. I must admit there were a couple that stood out for good and not so good reasons. I know I hear a lot of criticism about the Batman clone. I've heard some not great things about it being just a standard B&M invert. I think B&M are great manufacturers, but they do manufacture what I've heard referred to as catalog coasters.
Yeah.
So the layout is almost identical. The train, the track, it's just the theming that changes. So what are your thoughts on Batman?
Yeah, so me personally, I haven't been to all of the Six Flags parks, but back in the mid 90s when B&M, started rolling out these inverted coasters, which they became very famous for. Six Flags has always been known to go, the cheaper route, to get deals, package deals. And that's what happened with Batman the Ride, the B&M invert clone. I don't know the exact number of clones they have at all the Six Flags parks, but there's definitely a lot of them out there. So if you go to, multiple Six Flags parks in the US, you'll go on this Batman invert and it'll be exactly like the one, at the other park, right? Because they're clones. So like you said, exact same layout, maybe different color scheme, different type of queue line, yada yada yada. My thought on the ride itself, I enjoy it. It's short. It's not the biggest one out there. Obviously, it's not a unique layout, but they pack a punch. And at least the one at Six Flags Magic Mountain is still pretty smooth. There might be a little rattle to it in the back, which is common in B&M roller coasters, at least the older ones. But it's not a bad coaster by any means. But yeah, if you've been on 4 other Batman clones already, it's not going to be anything, unique.
Yeah, but I thinking about it in slightly different terms. What PJB Studios is saying here is a good point, I suppose. That if they duplicate a good coaster, then there's no harm in that. If if it's widely held as a good coaster, some people try to claim that in the UK, obviously we've got Nemesis, which I think was the original B&M invert, I think, or one of the early ones at least.
Yeah.
And then at my local park, we've got something called Nemesis Inferno, which is another B&M invert, but it's not a clone. The layout is different, and it does pack punches in different ways, and it's themed very differently. But I think, as you say, B&M inverts are you pretty much know you're going to get a good ride from it. They're quite reliable. As you say, apart from the odd rattle as they get a bit older, but generally speaking, obviously Nemesis is only now being retracked after nearly 30 years of operation. That tells you about the quality of manufacturing from B&M, I guess. But I suppose it's as you say, if you are looking for something different at every part. Here we go. Steve's correcting me. Good evening, Steve, by the way. Batman was the first, Nemi was second. Thanks for that, Steve. I had it in my head that Nemesis wasn't the first, but I had no idea which one was the first. So there we go. What's your favorite coaster at Magic Mountain?
It's like honestly, it depends on the day and the type of ride I get. So Twisted Colossus, if you actually get a duel on it, it can be, I mean, it's not, as big as like, Steel Vengeance and Iron Gwazi and Zadra and the like, but it can be considered a top tier RMC if you get that duel, because it brings the ride to a whole nother level and it's a very unique experience for an RMC. However, how they built this coaster, you don't get a guaranteed duel on it every time, unfortunately. It depends on the ride operators and how fast they get the train filled and secured and, you know, all that good stuff, and launch it out of the station to see if it'll line up with the next train. So it depends. And then X2, which a lot of people know about, you know, the four-dimensional, put aerodynamics out of business kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beast of a roller coaster, obviously. It's unless you've been on it, it's hard to explain what you feel. It's probably, I mean, I can't remember what it's called in Japan, but they have another four-dimensional coaster, which I hear is actually better than X2. It runs smoother. But, you know, in America, this is the only one. It's out of this world, but it honestly depends on where you sit and how it's running that day. Like, I've had some very, very, very smooth rides on X2, and then I've had other rides where you're like, legs are bumping around and stuff like that. So it really depends on, I mean, at the end of the day, if I take the smoothest ride on X2 and a dual on Twisted Colossus, I'd probably take the dual on Twisted Colossus. Just because, I mean, RMCs are awesome, but
Yeah.
X2 is a very, very close second.
We're still to get an RMC, obviously, in the UK. It's I think it's there's some, I seem to remember there's issues with health and safety over them, and about the way that the restraint system works or something. I can't quite remember what it was now. But we are going to be getting our first hypercoaster, I think, in the spring summer next year, opening up at Thorpe Park, which is the thrill park of the UK, I suppose. So probably the ideal place to locate it, with you know, the kind of oh, you go Janeka.
That's it.
Yeah, in Japan. I know Steve would know that. He is so well known, just knows so much about so many parks. It's unbelievable. If you ever want to know anything, Steve from Thrills and Food is the man to ask. He really is an absolute mine of knowledge.
Cool TIE fighter.
Obviously, Twisted Colossus obviously has a bit of a history, doesn't it? Because it originally was a wooden coaster, wasn't it? Just called Colossus.
There's a dueling wooden coaster.
A dueling wooden coaster. Sorry,
two separate tracks.
yes, and wasn't it the fastest
When it was built,
in the
it was the
world when it was
tallest and
built?
fastest coaster, I think, in the world at the time, which was I don't know the exact year, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and then obviously Magic Mountain planned to remove it, didn't they? I believe the plan was to demolish it.
They didn't announce what they were going to do with it. They just announced that they were closing the ride, and there was like an uproar because, you know, Colossus, you've seen it in movies and TV shows. Obviously, it's considered a parking lot coaster, but it's such an icon in the Magic Mountain skyline. You can see it from the freeway. You can see it as you park. You know, it's just iconic. And once they announced it was closing with, you know, no other information, everyone's like, no, don't close it. Like, but yeah, and then they turned it into Twisted Colossus, and no complaints after that. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think yeah, it's good that they did do obviously what they've done to it. I think the consensus of opinion appears to be that it was a good upgrade, and it still appears to be very, very popular. Steve was saying that he remembers riding Colossus backwards.
Yeah, so I've ridden that too. They would do it at like their Halloween event. It's an insane ride backwards, that's for sure. And I actually on my on Exploration Theme Parks Instagram story I posted the other day asking, you know, do you consider that a separate credit if they put
Yes, I saw that
backwards? Like, I honestly don't know how I feel about it, but you know,
well, it's not a boomerang coaster, so to ride it backwards essentially does make it a different ride because it would be, you experience it completely differently.
Yeah, for sure. And it's normally not like that. So when they put one train backwards, I mean, like you said, it's a completely different experience.
So I personally, I voted in that poll actually, and I said yes. For me, that would be classed as a completely separate credit.
Yeah, I haven't posted the results, but I think it was like 70-30 split to yes, it would be a separate credit.
Yeah. Magic Mountain do appear to have a bit of a love affair with B&M, don't they? Obviously, you've got with Riddler's Revenge being a B&M stand-up coaster. And then what was the other one? Tatsu, the B&M flying coaster.
Yeah, Scream, floorless coasters. So to give you some history, yeah, Six Flags definitely went through a time span where they were putting lots of B&M coasters in their parks. But then there was also a time span where they stopped doing work with B&M up until more recently when they put Dr. Diabolical's dive coaster, cliffhanger dive coaster in Texas.
Yeah.
That was like the first one in a long time that they put a B&M in. So I mean, I've always wanted a Giga at Six Flags Magic Mountain, so hopefully.
Well, who knows? Who knows? We seem to be going through a period of roller coaster developments. I think in general, we've got 3 or 4 new coasters opening up in the UK alone over the next sort of 18 months, which is more than has been done for about at least 10 years, possibly longer. So I think, and obviously you've got the likes of Energylandia, which has kind of appeared almost overnight. I suppose I think it's only about 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, who knows, maybe you'll get your Giga coaster. It certainly would be an exciting one, wouldn't it? Because of course you've got Wonder Woman there, haven't you, as well? The single rail coaster.
Yeah, that's their newest coaster. So, I mean, Six Flags Magic Mountain I know they were focused on being the first park to hit 20 coasters, which they were successful in doing. And now their 20th coaster was Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, the RMC single rail. There's a almost near clone that opened up first in New Jersey at that Six Flags. There's just at Magic Mountain, there's just one difference at the end. But honestly, I think that ride is great. It's compact, but I mean, it's an RMC coaster, so it whips you out in and out of your seat. It's very quick. For the most part, it was pretty smooth. I think it does have a little rattle to it now, but I thought it was a great addition to the park. And I know Energylandia is after that world record in most coasters for a park, which they'll definitely succeed in beating Magic Mountain soon. Because I think Six Flags, is laying off for a little bit of adding new rides every single year to the parks and kind of just renovating certain areas of the park. And then my hope is that they kind of take the Cedar Fair model, which, for 2 to 3 years, they like put some small additions, renovations in, and then they put like a huge ride in. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wonder Woman's great.
So obviously, as we've talked a little bit about your home park, Magic Mountain. And as I said, I've been following you because of the Instagram group chat for a little while. And then, of course, the announcement came for your European trip. And I think I messaged you straight away and said, are you coming to the UK? Because that would have been absolutely awesome. Would have loved to have met up and done things, but I know that that wasn't possible this time. But you popped in and make it sound like it was just a quick hop over. You popped into Germany. It's for us, I suppose it is. You pop over to Germany, pop over to Poland, pop over to Italy. It's short flights and quite easy to get to. But obviously the trip over from your travel vlog wasn't all plain and smooth sailing, was it?
Yeah, so it's like a 10 or 11-hour flight from LAX, which is Los Angeles Airport, and we had a layover scheduled in Frankfurt, Germany, and our flight out of Los Angeles was delayed, but not that much. But we had a pretty small window to meet our layover in Germany, and unfortunately, we had to move that layover flight to the next one, which wasn't until 5 hours later. So we did have a 5 hour layover in Germany as opposed to like 45 minutes
Yeah.
on the way there. But it worked out.
I must admit, I was actually really impressed with Lufthansa, the German airline, because obviously you contacted them, didn't you? And they were prepared to move you to the later flight, with what appeared to be very little fuss. It seemed to be quite. They were quite happy to go say, okay, totally understand. We'll put you on a later flight. Obviously, it incurred a 5 hour layover, but I was quite encouraged that they'd just done that and
Yeah,
meant at
it was
least.
very easy. Yeah, we just went up to like the check-in desk and just said, "Hey, look, like this flight's delayed. We don't think we're gonna make it onto our layover. Like, what's the next flight?" And she looked. She's like, "Yeah, you're gonna definitely want to move it. So let me move it for you." And that was the earliest flight they had. So yeah, they made the process very easy, just to move flights.
That's and that, as I said, that was really good to see that, because it could have obviously been involved a longer layover in Germany,
Yep.
or having to purchase more tickets, which I'm sure probably wasn't looking like a great option at the time, having spent a lot of money, I can only assume, getting over here in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so obviously you then got over to Poland. I'm assuming that you landed in Krakow.
Krakow. Yep. Took an Uber from Krakow to Zator, which is where we stayed. We stayed in it was Zator Apartmenti, I think it was called. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
a
I've heard of that.
apartment
Yeah,
complex that they have rentals at. So yeah, our Uber dropped us off there. No problems getting into our room at all. So that went pretty smooth getting from the Krakow airport to Zator, which is actually where Energylandia is located.
yes, yes. Um, Obviously your first day in Poland was planned to be your trip to Auschwitz,
Yep.
and unfortunately there was another snag hit there, wasn't there? And I must admit, I was actually quite shocked to hear how that unfolded. That potentially, if you hadn't have contacted the tour operator for Auschwitz, you would have turned up, and not been able to go and not being able to do a tour at all. I did think that was a bit disappointing, and it must have given you a bad impression of, or a bad first sort of impression of European service.
Yeah. So Darren's referring to a bonus vlog I posted on the channel of our trip to Auschwitz, but so yeah, so like the morning, so like so many people are traveling right now, especially to Europe. I mean, there's so many travelers there right now, and so what I heard going into our trip that from our travel agent was that there could be tours that will cancel on you because they don't have like enough tour guides or something like that, right? We actually had one of our tours, it was like granted 2 weeks before our trip, cancel on us for the Pompeii, but that gave us enough time to find another tour, right? And they
Yeah,
contacted us about it. So the first day, or so we arrived in Zator, Poland at night. The next morning, we were supposed to go to Auschwitz. Our tour was scheduled for 10 a.m. I think I called the company at 8 a.m. to just confirm like where the meeting point was at Auschwitz. And they said, oh, due to an error in our system, like it's canceled and there's nothing we can do. And we were just like, what? Like we were just in shock, right? Like Darren said, one, they didn't reach out to us to tell us anything. I had to call them. And then
yeah,
we're just left there like, what do we do? Because these tours broke up. There's so many people traveling. Um, like you might that's why you want to book everything in advance. So we go down to the front desk. There is a very lovely young lady that was working the front desk, and she's like, "Here, let me." And she spoke pretty good English, so we didn't have like a barrier there.
Yeah.
um, but she's like, "Let me try calling Auschwitz." So she called Auschwitz, and they said they only had one English speaking tour spot available. We needed two. And then she's like, "Hold on, let me call my mom. She knows some people that work at Auschwitz." And they were able to get us into an English speaking tour at 12 p.m. as opposed to 10 a.m., but at least it worked out.
Yeah, I must admit, I was so impressed with the level of service. Unfortunately, you'd experienced the worst service,
Yeah.
immediately followed by somebody offering the best kind of service.
Above and beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, I think that was really above and beyond. And obviously, in the vlog, you didn't mention that she'd used family connections. I don't remember seeing that bit. But I mean, that's just, as as you say, that's above and beyond, isn't it? That really is.
Oh, for sure. She was so nice. She was, as shocked as we were that how the company, was just like, "Oh, sorry, can't do anything about it for you," and she just wanted
Yeah,
to help. So like that was a very good feeling, especially being in a foreign country. Our first trip to Europe that we ran into someone working the front desk like that. Like she could have not really cared and just say, "Hey, look, I called Auschwitz. That's it. They don't have room. Sorry." But she wanted to help, and
yeah.
it was she went above and beyond to help us, and yeah, it was great.
And then obviously the trip to Auschwitz. Not to dwell on that too much, but that must have been quite a sobering, moving experience. Um, and obviously, you said to me, I think it was last night here anyway, that Nikki is Jewish, isn't she?
Yes, yes. So
So
that was on. Obviously, I like seeing, visiting historical spots, and I just love learning about history, seeing the places. But it's always been a bucket list item for her, just because she is Jewish and her family background and stuff like that. She's always wanted to visit Auschwitz, so that was definitely at the top of our list that we wanted to do while we were out there.
and then of course, finally, because I know from the vlog, the plan was to do the Auschwitz tour in the morning and then get over to Energylandia for a few hours in the afternoon before having a full day the next day. Um, but you still got to Energylandia, didn't you, that afternoon or later in the afternoon? What was your first impression of Energylandia?
Yeah, so initially we were thinking we're gonna have like 4 to 5 hours at Energylandia that day. Obviously, the Auschwitz tour got pushed back, so we didn't have as much time. But we traveled all that way, so we paid for a ticket to at least go for a couple hours that day. We just really wanted to spend as much time as we could at the park. Take full advantage of our trip. Um, that first day that we were there, we were more just focused on getting on a handful of rides as opposed to taking in the park.
Yeah,
Um, so like it wasn't until the next day when we had the full day, when we got there, when the park opened, the music was blasting. They slowly rolled up the gates at the front, and then they had all the characters and dancers meeting you and greeting you as you came into the park. Like that's when I was like, okay, this is great. Yeah, the day before we went on three of the coasters. We went on Hyperion, Zadra, and Formula, and I was like, oh my gosh, like especially Hyperion and Zadra, like world class coasters, right? So that blew me away. But then it wasn't
yeah.
until the full day where I was just like, okay, I'm feeling these great vibes right now at this park.
I think yeah, you hit on a point there, which I totally agree with, which is it's a completely different experience if you've been stood outside a park waiting for it to open, for those gates to finally open, and then as you say, and there's always that sort of welcoming. Well, saying always, but in a lot of parks, there's always some sort of welcoming ceremony, isn't there? Almost that
Yeah.
you know, that makes you feel that extra bit special, and like it's a and puts a polish on the day, a sparkle that wouldn't be there if you've turned up halfway through the day. The gates are already open, the dancers have gone. You know, you just walk straight in. As you say, the coasters were amazing, and you know, it was worth spending those couple of hours just to go and do those coasters. I've no doubt. But yeah, I could definitely tell that the second day, the excitement building as you were waiting for those gates. You know, it was obvious that it creates a different atmosphere. And as I say, I've not been to Energylandia. M from Oscar's Airtime has recently been, and it's a park I'm planning on visiting, hopefully this year at some point, probably in the autumn, fall, because yeah, and I think I'd be happy if I just got there and did Hyperion and Zadra. You know, I appreciate there's 15 other coasters there. Some of quite a number of them are kiddie coasters, but there are still some other really good rides as well. I know that M has totally fallen in love with Zadra, and I think most people do. It is that world-class coaster level, isn't it? I've watched POVs of it and vlogs of it, and everyone just seems to get completely blown away with Zadra. They go thinking that they'll fall in love with Hyperion, which is quite interesting. I've seen a lot of this where they go thinking they'll come away with Hyperion as their number one coaster, and actually end up coming away with Zadra as the number one.
Yeah, so I'm still yet to ride Steel Vengeance, unfortunately. And the first and only time I've been to Cedar Point, they were actually working on Steel Vengeance, but I have done Iron Gwazi. And even so, when we first rode Zadra the first day, I automatically was like, okay, for some reason, this is above Iron Gwazi, like the elements, and I think it was just flying through the layout when we went on it. And some of the elements were just so good on Zadra that it just went a spot above Iron Gwazi. And then the next full day we rode it in the front row, and it definitely had to. Don't get me wrong, it was still a world-class ride, but it definitely warms up during the day. And then we had another back row ride later in the day, and it was just probably the best ride like on RMC I've ever had. It was so good. And then Hyperion, you know, it's a intimate, I think they call it a mega coaster.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen POVs of it, but I mean, that thing blew me away as well. It's also in my top 10 currently. I mean, the airtime on Hyperion is insane. It's so forceful. You know, it's got these tiered seats. You know, we rode front row, we rode back row. Definitely more forceful when you're sitting in the back, but the front row is still great. It's got some unique elements on it, like wave turns, like Raven dive. Like it's those two roller coasters, like you said, if you just go to Energylandia and get on those two coasters, like you're good.
Yeah. I must admit, I'm surprised and but pleasantly surprised to hear you say that you rate Zadra above Iron Gwazi. Because I mean, Iron Gwazi looks, you know, absolutely insane to me, and it's one that I personally would love to go and experience. And Em's going to be lucky enough in August to be able to go and do that. And so I'm looking forward to hearing her feedback on Iron Gwazi.
Yeah, it also depends on, you know, like when you ride the coaster and, you know, the newer coaster bias. Like, don't get me wrong, Iron Gwazi, I could put Zadra, Iron Gwazi, you know, in either spot. You know, they're just both out of this world class coasters.
Yeah, it's something I've experienced quite often, actually. As you say, the difference in riding a coaster first thing when the park opens and later in the day, and especially the last ride of the day, and especially on hot sunny days as well. That makes a massive difference. Once those coasters have warmed up, it can feel like a different ride. I think that's probably true for a lot of coasters actually. I totally get where you're coming from with that. It's something I've definitely experienced myself. So if you see Zadra and Hyperion, what were the other rides that particularly grabbed you at Energylandia? Did you manage to do all 17 coasters?
We rode all 17 coasters. That's why our
Fantastic.
vlog for Energylandia is so long. I jam packed it with all the POVs. I mean, I personally love watching POVs of like other people.
Yeah.
That's why I threw all the POVs in there. I like documenting what goes on with us through our day, what we experience, our ride experiences, if the park allows us. Energylandia, they only allow GoPro chest mounts. You have to get it checked by the security as you walk in. They do a thorough check and they give you a nice shiny sticker on your GoPro mount. But Abyssus is their newest. They're actually working on a new area that's still not open. No one knows when it's going to open. I think it's going to have 2 new coasters. But Abyssus and Aqualantis or Aqualantica, one of those. That's their newest coaster, a new gen Vekoma. We rode it earlier in the day. It was good. It felt like it needed to warm up. We took another ride at the end of the day. Definitely warmed up. Definitely was a better ride. The only thing about Abyssus, they have trim brakes on their small little top hat, which I think if they took those out, it would definitely bring it to another level. Formula surprised me. It's actually a smaller new gen Vekoma. I mean, Formula, I mean, it's short, but it packs such a good punch. Like the first launch is amazing, and it go into this huge loop and it just twists you at the end to the left, and it has some good pops of airtime. So that was a nice surprise to me. It was how well Formula rode. I got attacked by flies on Abyssus. And then I think I saw mine in the comments. Mine is an infamous Vekoma SLC, but they have the new Vekoma trains, and that was my first time riding a Vekoma SLC with the new trains. And oh my gosh, like obviously it's still not the smoothest coaster, but you can actually enjoy the ride. I told you, I mentioned that Blue Tornado at Gardaland was probably one of the worst coasters I've been on because it's Vekoma SLC with old trains. Like mine's actually a good ride. And they're the same coaster. Like just the difference in trains brings it to another level.
Yeah.
And then Speed, the water coaster, it's an Intamin water coaster. I mean, you've seen how big that tower is. It's very intimidating, but it was a fun coaster as well. Like we said, the park. So like what I got from Energylandia, one, it's such a clean park. They keep it spotless. We were walking around and we saw workers just picking up the smallest pieces of trash and throwing them away. Like they keep it spotless. Operations were great at the park as well. I did so like in the front of the park, you'll notice that they have some of these smaller kind of carnival looking rides and roller coasters. So that's kind of how that park started.
Yeah.
Um, some of their jankier coasters are definitely like old carnival style roller coasters. And I think they're just going for that record of most coasters, but you can tell with their newer additions that they're upping the game and theming and just the overall ride in general. They're going
Yeah.
with their better rides. So like I think those were the coasters that were. Oh, and Dragon is a Vekoma suspended family coaster. And I've done a couple of the smaller models, but that one actually like packs a pretty good punch and has some forces to it, which actually surprised me. Um, but out of all, I think those were more the standout coasters to me because the rest were more the kiddie coasters, family
Yeah.
coasters that you've seen in a lot of the parks. So.
And I think they do have a lot of, as you say, those sort of kiddie and family coasters, but enough of thrill coasters as well to make it a good place to go and visit for most people. Um, quite rightly said here. If you want to ride a ride that really packs a bit of a punch, Stealth at Thorpe Park is an Intamin launch coaster, and it's a hydraulic launch, and it's 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds, I think it is,
Oh wow.
and it proper packs a punch. You really know you've been launched when you do Stealth. So you got to get yourself over to the UK.
It's definitely on our list of things to do eventually. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's we've got some interesting coasters, to say the least. A lot of firsts, or certainly early generation coasters in a lot of parks, and as I say, so we've got a good collection here. So obviously Energylandia, brilliant, thrills, spills. One of the criticisms I know is often levelled at Energylandia is it's the theming isn't amazing. That they've opted more for thrill over theme. That there is theming and it's good, but it's not amazing.
So yeah, I think that goes back to their. I mean, this is a brand new park. I think it opened in 2014. Like you said, it's only like 9 years old.
Yeah,
And in the beginning, I think they were just kind of plopping down some rides to have some rides there. And so the front of the park is, you'll notice like there's a lot less consistent theming, more just random rides put down. But then there's the back of the park where like Zadra and Abyssus is, and you actually have to walk down a little tunnel under a road, and then you're in the second half of the park. And you can tell that they're spending more focus on the theming back there. Like Aqualantica is a gorgeous area, and the theming's pretty good. Even where Zadra and Frida are, I forgot what the area is called, but I mean, it reminded us of like the Harry Potter lands at Universal Studios, how the
I
buildings
remember
look.
seeing that in your vlog. Yes.
Yeah, and then the new area is they're working on what is it called? I know they're building Chaco Creek Mine Ride. I can't remember. It's like a candy themed land that they're building,
Yeah.
and it looks great from what you could see. So they're definitely putting more focus now on quality, I think, even though they're still throwing in a bunch of family Vekoma boomerangs. But
Yeah.
like they are focusing more on like the theming and quality of rides as opposed to just plopping in random rides.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely seems like, as you say, that the later stages, the later developments of the park are certainly putting more of an emphasis on theming, whereas initially it was a case of just wanted to put rides down and get them operated. Yeah, I think, as you say, now as time's going on, the park's becoming more popular. I think there's been a new wave of investment as well into the park, which has meant they've got that sort of money to spend a bit more now on the theming. Obviously, the next park you went to after Energylandia was it's completely the opposite. It is so amazingly themed, that but probably not such a thrill-seeking park. Obviously, and that was Phantasialand in Germany. What did you think about that particular park?
Phantasialand blew me away. I mean, I went in knowing and hearing everyone say like how great this park is, how great the theming is. Oh yeah, I see Oscar's airtime. Locker system is excellent too. Yeah, the locker system at Energylandia was great. You have to buy a wristband, but it's transferable, and you just scan it as you go.
Yeah, I saw that in the vlog, and I thought, what a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think parks should offer free lockers, but that was actually very easy to use, and I just wanted to mention that I saw that in the comment. But Phantasialand, yes, I went in knowing and hearing like how great the theming is. We actually stayed at Hotel Charles Lindbergh, so that's their newest area, Rootberg, and obviously Fly.
Yep.
And it was like a package deal, and we wanted to stay at one of the hotels on the property. And like the second you walk in the door, you're just immersed in the hotel. Like it's just absolutely insane how detailed the theming is. They have music going, even like their workers are just all immersed. Like it was just out of this world. Even though even the like our aeronaut cabin, like yes, it's a smaller room, but we knew it was smaller and it was for the experience. It's just so detailed and themed, and then the park is just on another level. Like Ruchberg, where their new Vekoma Fly coaster is, it takes your breath away when you first walk in. And I was well aware of the theming there, but still being there, hearing it, seeing it, feeling it, like it was just out of this world.
Yeah, I must. People that I've spoken to that have been there have said, you can watch as many videos as you like about it, you'll still never quite grasp how amazing that theming is. I mean, I love that steampunk theming.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It looks industrial, and I think it lends itself very well to roller coasters, but it's just, yeah, it's absolutely insane how well themed it really is, and as you say, and it's right down to detail. I think somebody was saying to me even things like tickets and things like that, have got that sort of detailing on them, and it's like no I has been left undotted and no T's been left uncrossed. They've literally nailed every single little thing right through. I suppose it does create a completely different experience. How did you find the coasters there? Because as I say, one of the things that I do hear quite a lot about Phantasialand is that they're great coasters, but they're not amazingly thrilling coasters. Fly, Taron, obviously, that I think are the two most famous ones there.
So Fly I'll just say it off the bat. Fly and Terran are in my top 10. Fly is just, I mean, the roller coaster, you start by sitting normal and you go through like a little dark ride scene, and then it turns you to the flying mode, and then it's got I think two launches on it. It's got a
Yeah.
couple like zero G rolls, and I mean it's just built into this area. There's so many head chopper moments. Like it's just there's no other ride like it, and it's such a cool experience, and it's a thrilling roller coaster. So that's one of the rides. Obviously, there are other world class coasters. Terran, my first ride on it. A lot of people compare it to Maverick, even though Maverick's technically a blitz coaster, and Terran, I guess, is technically a LSM launch coaster by Intamin, but they're very comparable in how they ride and their layouts and stuff like that. And at first, I would have said like Maverick. I would take Maverick over Terran any day. Terran has theming, it's so inclusive. The area is called Klugheim, and I mean this it's something out of Game of Thrones. Like it's just
Yes.
so breathtaking. But the ride, then we had a front row ride on Terran, and I mean it blew me away. Like it's just so weird, like how you ride a ride at one time of the day in a different spot, then you ride it again in a front row, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like a different experience, and I love this coaster. So that's the other thrilling coaster there, our most thrilling coaster. Let's see, they have
You've also got.
another one that really surprised us was Colorado Adventure.
Oh,
Their
okay.
Tacoma Mine Train coaster. Like I mean, this thing's no joke. Like it literally throws you. You get some crazy laterals, some crazy airtime on it. I mean, don't skip that coaster if you're going to Phantasialand.
And of course, they have Black Mamba there, which is
Yeah, Black Mamba. So it's another cool coaster that's just built into the area. The theming's great. It's definitely a shorter B&M invert. A little rattle to it. It's not one that blew me away, but definitely obviously a must to ride when you're going to Phantasialand. And another ride that pleasantly surprised us was Winge's Fear and Winge's Forest, which is technically two separate coasters. They're like Wild Mouse spinner coasters, but they have
Yep.
a few surprises packed into them, and they're very smooth, and like you're laughing the whole time you're on those rides.
Yeah, and of course you've got the mouse au chocolat there as well. Did you experience that one?
We did not. We did not have time, unfortunately.
I think unfortunately because you had 2 days at Phantasialand, didn't you?
Yeah, in full it'd be 2 days. So we had a half day there, the day of arrival, a full day, and then we only spent like a couple hours the last day, just kind of doing some re-rides that we wanted to do.
Yeah,
So yeah, we didn't unfortunately have time. I mean, our days were packed until we had to leave the park to go eat our dinner, at the hotel. So
that's fair enough. And then from Phantasialand, you went over to Gardaland.
yep.
Um, now I'm not particularly familiar with Gardaland. That one is in.
So it's like right outside of Verona, Italy.
That's it. Yeah, it.
And so like Energylandia and Phantasialand were both amazing in their own right. And then so Garderland, one, it was incredibly crowded. And we were there on a Friday, and me and Nikki were both like, it can't be this crowded every Friday. Like there's something going on. And it ended up being Italy's national holiday of becoming a republic. So
Oh
like everyone
no.
had off work. Like there's so many people at this park. Fortunately, I bought fast passes ahead of time just because I didn't know what to expect with crowds. And you're
Yeah, yeah,
traveling all this way, like we want to get the most out of it.
of course.
And so that was good that I had purchased those. And Darren and I were talking about this before the chat was it feels like Merlin parks are kind of similar to Six Flags parks in the US, where they kind of go the more cheaper and budget route of things as opposed to like say Phantasialand or even Energylandia now. Um, to me, Gardaland felt like they had older rides, less upkeep on them. Um, and I think just the crowd threw us off because like the lines for these rides were just insane. Like for the Vekoma SLC, I think it had at least an hour and a half line, and that's one of the worst coasters I've ever been on. For some reason, our fast pass didn't include its Kung Fu Panda, like Wild Mouse coaster,
Okay.
and we had to wait an hour and a half for that. And it's literally like one of the worst Wild Mouse coasters I've been on.
Yeah.
Um, it's a big park. It's a beautiful park, but yeah, it's just I think it's more of like the crowds that threw us off that we weren't really fully able to enjoy it as we could have, but we didn't know it was going to be an Italy national holiday. But I'll be posting the vlog soon on Gardaland as well. So
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that one because I've not looked very much into Gardaland because um, it doesn't really stand out. The fact that it's a Merlin park already puts me on a slightly negative bias towards it because you know the four main parks, if you like, in the UK are all Merlin parks, and we all know that there's a lot of cost cutting goes on, as you say, older rides where the upkeep on them hasn't been amazing. It's kind of like we'll do enough to keep it running,
yeah,
but that'll be about where it sort of finishes.
I'll give you an
Um,
interesting comparison with the upkeep point. So Colorado Adventure at Phantasialand's of Vekoma Mine Train Coaster. Mammoth is a very popular Vekoma Mine Train coaster at Gardaland. Um, Mammoth, I think, is actually a newer coaster than Colorado Adventure.
yeah,
Mammoth is way rougher than Colorado Adventure, and that just shows you right there, like the upkeep thing. Like We didn't even enjoy Mammoth, but Colorado Adventure, we were just like, can't get enough of that coaster, you know?
Yeah.
So
And as I say, unfortunately, that's consistent with Merlin generally. We're kind of optimistic that the new CEO that they appointed may help, and it does already. There is already signs that they're moving in a different direction. With obviously they've opened up World of Jumanji in Chessington World of Adventures,
right.
and for a Merlin park area, the theming is incredible. They've really, there's a lot of attention to detail gone in, and it's so we're sort of optimistic. And of course, their plans for new coasters going forward is something we're sort of hoping we can get excited and get behind them on, because for so long it's been stagnant. And it's a shame, because what we've ended up with is parks where the newest coaster, which Wickerman, of course, at Alton Towers, is now 5 years old. And then after that, there's a considerably longer time for the newest one before that. So investment has been very much lacking. But it does seem to be now that all of a sudden they announced World of Jumanji. They announced dueling boomerang coasters for Legoland as well. They announced the retrack of Nemesis. They announced Project Exodus for Thorpe Park, as well as the retheming of other rides. Project Horizon, which we believe, because nobody seems to be 100% sort of thing, but we're all sort of now of the belief that it's an indoor coaster of some description. So all of a sudden, in a 12-month sort of period, it's like they're just throwing money at ride investments, which is very encouraging to see, and
Definitely.
hopefully will continue. So overall, I mean, it sounds like you've had a pretty good varied experience of European parks. You've had the thrills, if you like, of Energylandia, the theming of Phantasialand, and then Merlin at Gardaland. Would you say that you went away with a positive opinion of European parks?
Definitely. I mean, like you said, Energylandia and Phantasialand are both amazing parks. I mean, even Energylandia with the lack of theming in like the front of the park. I mean, like I said, like the park is just spotless. It's so clean. The operations were great. The workers were great. You know, we had great experiences, and even Gardaland. I think a large part of what put us off was just the amount of large crowds there that day, which is no fault of the park. You know, it's their national holiday. And everyone had off of work, you know, so there was just massive crowds there that day.
Yeah,
We didn't definitely didn't have the time to fully embrace the park, I guess, per se, even though we did get to ride all the roller coasters there. But then also coming from Phantasialand, which is just on another level than most parks in the world, and then going to Gardaland is also going to put, you know, some sort of bias, you know, on the park.
I think, yeah, having once you've been to Phantasialand, anything after that is going to be a bit of an anticlimax, I suppose, because it is so amazing and it is so beautiful, and and I don't think anyone can criticize it as a park. It is absolutely amazing. So any park after that has got a big job to live up to that level, and I'm not sure that there's another park in Europe that really could rival that.
I think the only other park that in general that can rival that is Islands of Adventure in Florida.
Yes, yes, yeah. I think the theming there is absolutely incredible. When I did the recent live stream with Longhorn Coasters, and of course we went live. They went live from Islands of Adventure, and it's that thing that seeing it live is different to, you know, obviously seeing it in real life is what I'd love to do eventually, and I will get there one day. But seeing it live, even live streamed as opposed to on a video, was just you know, just really drove home how amazing that park really is. So yeah, I think so. Overall, would you say that your the parks in Europe compared favorably to what you were used to in the US?
Yeah, like you said, I had a good mixture of different style parks. You know, I think if I were to compare them to parks in the US, I would probably say Energylandia is more relate or more closer to like a Cedar Fair park. Phantasialand, though it's a more compact park, I mean the engineering's insane there, is more comparable to like an Islands of Adventure, which is a Universal park, and then Gardaland, which is a Merlin park, is more comparable to a Six Flags park in the U.S.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely got a good mixture of style parks in Europe, but in general, absolutely loved it, and can't wait
That's
to
great
get
to
back.
hear, because you know, it's you sort of always wonder, you know, when knowing what you guys have got over there, you know, whether coming over to Europe, you know, would be um, disappointing almost. But it sounds like that's not the case, and that's really nice to hear, because, you know, obviously we all in Europe, or certainly in the UK anyway, we you know, we all sort of look up to these parks in America, you know, and all the amazing rides that you have there, and you know, and it's and I think we're so busy wishing we had that sometimes maybe we forget to appreciate what we have got. And again, and you know, on our doorstep, I suppose the distance from the UK to Poland is probably less than the distances between parks in the US.
Yeah.
So I suppose when you put the whole of Europe together, you know, actually our offering is probably not not bad at all. Of the three parks that you did visit, which would you call as your favorite? I think I think I know which one I would guess at.
Phantasialand for
Yeah,
sure.
I thought it might be. I thought it might be. I think the theming swayed that one, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean they just got, and they also have so many unique rides there. I mean they have Chapas, which is probably the best log flume ride in the world. Even River Quest is a unique rapid ride.
Yeah,
Um, all their even Crazy Bats. I mean it's a VR coaster, but it's not bad. But yeah, the theming there is just, it takes it to a whole nother level on top of some of the unique rides that they have to offer. And then obviously they have Talocan, which is that crazy, it's a flat ride, which is at other parks, but the theming they put around it brings it to a whole nother level, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree. I you know, and theming can do that. You know, we know that from Wicker Man in the UK. You know, it is a great a great wooden coaster. Don't get me wrong, it's a great wooden coaster, but its theming takes it to another level.
Yeah.
You know, and I dare say most people would say arguably it's one of the best themed coasters in the UK. You know, and it does make it so much better as an experience, and as an attraction. So it can the right theming can have that impact, of course. If anybody has any questions for tonight's guest, please feel free to put them in the live chat. I've got a couple that I'm going to sort of start firing at him now. I do appreciate that it is we're well over the hour, so if you do need to go, Kevin, please let me know at any point, because you know, I appreciate you giving up your time for us today. So you know,
Yeah,
I
no, I
don't
got
want
a
to.
little more time for sure.
That's fantastic. So obviously now you've experienced these European parks, and obviously the US parks that you've experienced. Number one coaster. Oh, look at this. Great minds think alike. Me and Em's a very good friend of mine from Oscar's Airtime. She's probably one of my best friends. And look at this mental connection. I was just about to say to you, what is your number one coaster?
Velocicoaster.
I think that seems to be consistent with a lot of people who've experienced it.
It's weird because like I mean, don't get me wrong, Zadra and Iron Gwazi are right behind it, but every time I rode Velocicoaster, it just kept getting better and better and better.
I think I've only ever heard one person be critical of Velocicoaster, and that was Jameer from Park Visions, and he said it relied very heavily on its theming. I'm not totally sure I agree with that from what I've seen and what other people have said.
I think the theming takes it to, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, theming takes rides to another level. And Velocicoaster, like the first half is a little more tame than the second half, but it's still very thrilling. And then it just shoots you into the second half. So like the layout alone is a top tier world class coaster, and then you throw that theming on top of it. I mean, it's just
So Steve's asking, what's your bucket list coaster and park?
Right now, bucket list coaster would have to be Steel Vengeance. I still haven't ridden it. We were last at Cedar Point when they were building Steel Vengeance, and we haven't been out since. Bucket list park right now, I would say is Hershey Park. I mean, it looks like they have probably one of the best coaster lineups in the world, and especially with the new Wildcat. So yeah.
Yes, I did. My Instagram feed went very Wildcat crazy. I follow obviously yourself, the Zuda Loopers, Katie's Coasters, Park Visions, of course, and all their opening day, and it was all these POVs and all these reels of Wildcat, and so I think it whipped up quite a lot of excitement and enthusiasm from people that were there for sure. Em's asking your favorite theme park food. Ooh.
Oh, I'd say churros. I am a sucker for churros. We had some great churros at Energylandia. I'd say for like a meal wise, theme parks have different food to offer. I think the majority of theme parks have more of the basic, hamburgers or chicken tenders and fries. If I had to go for a basic menu item, it would be the chicken tenders and fries.
And is there a particular park that you prefer to eat at, that you've eaten and you thought actually their food was next level or better than the average?
I mean, we try not to eat if we can, like at local parks, we try not to eat at the park if we can. We try to bring snacks and food with us. I thought Phantasialand had great food.
Yeah.
I think Disney parks and Universal parks have great food, but obviously theme park food is just really expensive in general. But the quality is definitely better there.
Fair enough. Em noticed earlier your Star Wars collection at the back. Which one's your favorite film?
Favorite film would be Empire Strikes Back, which I think is a lot of people's favorite. I nerd out on Star Wars, roller coasters, theme parks, and basketball. So weird combinations, but yeah, I'm definitely a Star Wars fan. Have quite the collection going. But yeah.
Yes, definitely. And then she followed that with your favorite Star Wars character?
Darth Maul.
That's an interesting one. Very interesting, because most people go for a goodie essentially, don't they? Luke Skywalker, Han Solo. I'm not a massive Star Wars fan, but I did always quite like Han Solo and Chewbacca.
Yep.
They were the two for me. I think for a lot of non-Star Wars people, they're probably very
I'm
popular characters.
definitely a Star Wars fan, if you haven't noticed.
Oh wow! Oh my god,
And
that's
our dog, one
amazing.
of our dogs' name is Chewbacca.
And who's to say he wasn't some kind of dog? There was never, well, not that I remember there being an amazing, particularly clear explanation as to exactly what Chewbacca was. But I just loved him. I love that noise that he made, and
Yeah.
you know, he was sort of fluffy but dangerous. And yeah,
Exactly.
I did it. I did like that. But as I say, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I was more of a Star Trek fan. That was my household. We were all big Trekkies. So your weirdest ride that you've done?
Weirdest ride. I don't know about the weirdest ride. That one's a tough one. The weirdest ride is hard to think of off the top of my head. For a coaster being completely pointless, I would say the Grizzly at California Great America, which is a Cedar Fair park. It's a Woody, and there's just I don't see one point to that roller coaster whatsoever.
Right. Steve's asking for the best coaster on the West Coast.
Oh man, I would say Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm.
Okay. Yeah, Steve mentioned earlier on, because I know he's doing an American road trip in August, I want to say it is, and he's got quite a few parks, and I think Knott's Berry is one of the ones he's doing. Hershey's is another one that he's doing. So I'm quite looking forward to hearing about, similarly to you as an American enthusiast coming to the UK, sorry, not the UK, to Europe and experiencing European coasters. It'd be quite interesting to hear his view. I know he's been to the States before, but obviously there have been new coasters opened since then, and it's always quite nice to get that sort of opinion, isn't it? From a different perspective.
Right.
And yeah, he agrees. He loves Ghost Rider, so he's obviously done that one before. I've lost track of the number of parks that Steve has been to. To be fair, he's very well travelled. So yeah, it's quite likely that if it's a park, certainly European wise, he's probably been there. And there's quite a few American ones as well that he has visited. And if he hasn't yet, probably will do in the near future.
Yeah.
So obviously you've done Poland, Germany, Italy. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it to the UK. Is the UK in your plans at any point?
So we don't know what our next trip would be, but UK is definitely on a list of where we want to go. Just for the history of the UK, the sites, and of course all those theme parks they have to offer. So it'd definitely be a nice long trip once we actually do get out to the UK, because there's just so much to see and do there.
Yes, yeah, and as we were discussing before we went live, you know, we've got quite a lot of parks in the UK. Some little ones sort of dotted around, some bigger ones like Alton Towers, obviously, and you know, and Blackpool, and you know, and those kind of parks. And there is quite a variety. As you say, history-wise, you know, you've got like Blackpool with its 100-year-old coasters, and then you know, so yeah, I think it'd be an interesting experience for you to actually come and experience what we have in the UK, because it is so varied, and the levels of theming are so varied, and maintenance and cleanliness and, you know, all those kind of things, it varies so vastly from park to park. It would it would certainly be interesting to get you to come and visit as many of them as you could, and then
Right.
get your overview of them afterwards, because I think I think it would be fascinating to hear that, and as I say, and get you on stealth. You know, that's an absolute must. I know Nemesis is on your bucket list,
Yeah.
for coasters. Stealth would have to be, just to get you that experience of that punch. You know, I don't think you've proper felt, for me, a proper gut punch until you've been launched on stealth. It is proper, you know, that sort of launch. It's quite severe, but it's a great ride. It's my number one. I think more because it took me a while to conquer it. Obviously, my background, as you probably know, is that 3 years ago I couldn't even get on a roller coaster. I was terrified, absolutely terrified, panic attacks, anxiety, everything. And stealth was one for me that was particularly bad because it's 200 and odd feet high, and I'm terrified of heights. So you know, so to and I'd say it's only really this year that I feel totally comfortable riding it. So even, you know, even though I've done it every year for the past sort of 2 years, 3 years, never felt completely comfortable riding it until this year. And now I feel, you know, it doesn't bother me at all. I just get on it now and go and love it. So it's
That's
now
awesome.
elevated itself for that reason to my number one. Yeah, that's probably why I've got that love affair with it, is because it took
Well,
me
maybe
so
we got to
long.
get you out to Six Flags Magic Mountain to go on Superman.
Do you know, I'd love to. I'd love to go and have a go on that. That does look quite insane as well. I say for me, I would just love to come and spend a year. I think a year would be enough. Just traveling around the States, doing various parks, because I think I'd want to spend a bit of time in each sort of area to be able to
Yeah,
do more than 1 day or more than 2 days, to fully appreciate every ride. You know, I think you do a ride, you get an impression of a ride. But you know, it's only once you've done a ride a few times that you truly get what the ride is like. You know, when you've done it at its worst, at its best, you know, and different rows and things like that. You know, then I think you can truly critique a ride, rather than you know, just that thing. Steve's saying he's wondering whether it will change to an LSM in the future with King Dakar obviously being shut again.
yeah, it's very interesting what's going on with these exhilarator coasters. Like Exhilarator at Knott's, we still don't know what they're doing with that. That's been closed for a while now, and there's no announcement on that. At least Cedar Point has announced that they're reimagining Top Thrill Dragster, and obviously the huge rumor is that they're putting a huge spike in there now, which would be absolutely insane. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And then King Dakar, I guess apparently like the cable broke or something for the launch.
I did hear that, yes.
So yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, Superman's launch is just so loud; it sounds like a sonic boom when it launches.
Wow.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they eventually want to reimagine Superman as well. But we are talking about a Six Flags park. Unfortunately, they don't. I mean, I'm hoping that their game plan has changed more recently, that they're gonna start taking care of their parks better, which it seems like they are. I've seen it at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And then every few years they do a large investment, either reimagining a current ride or putting in another huge ride. Because I mean that's what Cedar Fair tends to do a lot, is they'll wait a few years and then put in, you know, a world-class coaster at one of their parks, you know, which I think draws more people in as opposed to just plopping in all these one ride each year that really doesn't stand out that much. But yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if Superman changes at all. But it's a short ride, but you know, for people that travel to Six Flags Magic Mountain, I've heard everyone say like it's such a unique experience that they actually love the ride. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it will be interesting to see the future of, I suppose, of all these hydraulic launches. If King Dakar has identified potentially a problem with, you know, obviously, as you say, the cable snapping, the LSM is the alternative to create a similar sort of launch. In which case, will we see, you know, because there are a few Intamin launch coasters out there. So it'll be interesting to see whether they all slowly become LSMs, or whether it's just unfortunate that King Dakar experienced that, and and actually it's not a consistent problem across the style. It was just unfortunately that one ride.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they get these. I mean, I think these parks realize that these are icons at the park, like Thrills and Food is saying. I think he's saying that about Superman, and Superman, I think, was actually the OG Exhilarator coaster that first opened way back in the day. But these are icons in the park. They tower in the skylines. People travel to go on these rides. And I think Cedar Point, even after that accident, knows this. That it's not going to be Cedar Point if they don't have Top Thrill in the skyline in some shape or form. And I think the Six Flags in Jersey will do this. Will realize the same for King Ka. Even Knott's Berry Farm Exhilarator definitely has a forceful launch out of the station, but it is smaller, but it's still an icon in the skyline. So hopefully they get that up and going sooner than later, so I can hop over on the freeway and get to ride it again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hope they can resolve whatever the issues are quickly and get them back up and running, because as you say, they are iconic coasters. I mean, King Dakar, it's a ride that I only have to watch a POV of King Dakar and I feel anxious. Just the sheer height of that thing and the speed of that launch, just absolutely terrifies me. But terrifies me in an adrenaline fueled sort of way that I always said that, having looked at it, that I'd never ever be able to get on it. But I said that about a lot of coasters over the years. And now I sort of find myself looking at it going, I don't think I could get on it right now, but I'm not going to rule out ever getting on it.
Right.
Because I think, that I'd like to think one day that maybe that's my ultimate aspiration, is to get up over that top hat on King Dakar, because that would be a real challenge of my fears, to go sort of that over 400 feet into the air. Then I think that for me would be a real achievement, because as I said, heights is my biggest fear. So but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for these rides. I think that appears to be it for the questions. So I will say thank you so much for giving up your time today. I was going to say this evening. It's this evening here, but it's not there. And coming in to talk to us, and obviously giving us your opinion on European parks. If anybody wants to check out Kevin's European trip, the vlogs are slowly uploading onto his YouTube channel, the link for which is in the description for tonight's video, as is the link for your Energylandia vlog. I put that into the description as well. That one's well worth checking out, especially for the POVs, which are in there in abundance. But I say yes, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved talking to you, and I really do hope that in the not too distant future we can get you to the UK. And we can meet up, and I can get your opinion firsthand on some of the UK rides. That would be absolutely awesome. I keep trying to convince the Zooders to come over, and the Longhorns, and everyone's saying, oh yeah, we want to come, but I haven't managed to persuade anybody yet to make that trip.
We will one day, for sure. We will one day.
That would be absolutely amazing. And obviously, yeah, we'd love that to happen. But yeah, so thank you very much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing your Gardaland vlog coming up. And I know obviously you went to Pompeii. We didn't get time to talk about that. Is there a vlog from Pompeii as well, or did you not vlog Pompeii?
So I'm currently uploading Phantasialand Day 2. Next would be Gardaland, and then I'm also, once I get some more time, I'm going to do a bonus vlog of kind of our experience throughout visiting Italy, like Venice, Florence, Rome, Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius. So that'll be a bonus vlog down the line.
Yeah, I will. I look forward to that one, because I find Pompeii particularly interesting, and the history of Pompeii very interesting. And I can only imagine it was quite a creepy place to be as well. So, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, certainly. Cool. Well, I say thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
And I look forward to speaking to you as time goes on, of course, in our group chat, and get you back on one day as well for another update when you've got some more big things to talk about with us. So yeah, so for now, I'll say good night and take care. See you soon. So there we go, Kevin from Exploration Theme Parks, and how heartening was it to hear that European parks actually are comparable to American parks, and you know, and that we actually have got something to be proud of here in Europe. So that's really nice to know. And Kevin, obviously such a nice guy, and giving up his time to come and talk to us today is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen the vlogs, get over to his channel and check those out. Obviously smash that subscribe button for him as well. And that's it for tonight. Next week, let me just check my calendar here, and I will tell you who is coming up next week. So next week we have yes, we've got another back chat episode next week, and I shall be welcoming back the guest who was on the second show I ever did, which is Sean from Lift Hills and Launches. I'm going to be talking about all his trips to Dubai, and his trekking him all over the world, and just there's so much to catch up with Sean. I now regret leaving it as long as I have to get him back on board, because there's going to be so much to talk about and so much to catch up with. So much has happened since then, and of course opening up his own museum of horror. So yeah, it's going to be an action-packed, full-on show next week. So be sure to tune in next week, 8 o'clock Monday night, for Sean from Lift Hills and Launches. So until then, thank you for watching. If you haven't already smashed the like button, please smash the like button. If you're watching the recording, thank you so much for tuning in and coming to the channel and watching the show. And maybe if you get an opportunity to catch one of the live shows, it's far more interactive if you can be in the live chat and giving us your opinion as we go. So yeah, that's it. Take care for now, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.